Oh boy. Do you feel that voting makes no difference? Consider an honest politician an oxymoron? Think the federal government is exceeding the constitutional limits? Need a reason to hope for change? If you replied yes to any of these questions, you might be interested in Ron Paul. Actually, if you want to be honest, this would actually say, do you want to vote for a racist scumbag? Do you think the Department of Education needs to be repealed so we can give tax credits to homeschoolers? Do you think the Department of Energy needs to be taken away and the military needs to be privatized? Do you want to implement a fair tax which actually screws over the middle class more than it does anybody else? Well, if so, you should vote for Ron Paul, who, I gotta admit, is a person that I do not like. Now, a lot of people are going to think this is some sort of political reason as to why this is the case. The thing is, I don't like any politicians, but I especially do not like Mr. Paul. I don't know about you, but on my college campus, this kind of propaganda is everywhere. I mean, it's on your car windshield, it's on your dining tables, on the Coke machines, everywhere. It's unavoidable. And for the life of me, I really can't figure out why Mr. Paul is such a cultural icon for my generation. Other than the fact that we're really, really stupid, which I think is probably the answer all along why he's even considered a potential candidate for anything other than stay in an insane asylum. The thing about Mr. Paul that kind of irks me the most is that he has this reputation as being, basically some sort of like Chuck Norris politician. He can do all these things. Oh, he's for free trade and gun rights, and his character stands for integrity and courage. He's never voted to raise taxes or never taken a government-paid junket. All this crap going on here is just flat-out, bold-faced lies. And in fact, you're probably going to be seeing a lot of this in the future because it's election year coming up next year, and I'm sure all of the Ron Paul aficionados will be out there putting this garbage everywhere. So to kind of counteract this, I want to give you a dose of something most libertarians are unaware of. It's called reality. And I actually have here a couple of notes about Mr. Paul, stuff that you're not going to be seeing on any of these flyers, things that kind of talk about his true character. Beginning with the fact that, in the late 80s, early 1990s, Ron Paul, like a lot of political kooks, had his own newsletter. And his newsletter actually had two. There was one called the Ron Paul Survival Report. Holy crap. And the thing is, even though he's kind of flip-flopped on whether or not he actually wrote the material in it, in 96 he said he did. No, wait. Yeah, 96 he said he did. 2001 he said he didn't. 2008 he said it didn't even exist, even though they did. The fact of the matter is, he knows the guy who is the executive publisher for this. And that guy is still on his cabinet, so he has not parted ways with the person responsible for making the executive decision to put content in the newsletter with his name on it. So, if nothing else, it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario, where, he kind of knew and did not care, or he had no idea what was going in a presser with his own name on it. I bring that up because the material you will find in these newsletters are very, very kind of racist. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, for example, and you can click on this link below. It'll take you to a PDF version. You can read everything I have here and more. Yeah, you got here something called Needlin, which is a report about how supposedly there are young African Americans in New York infecting people with AIDS. Direct quote from the Ron Paul newsletter. At least 39 white women have been stuck with used hypodermic needles, perhaps infected with AIDS, by gangs of black girls between the ages of 12 and 14. The New York Times didn't find this fit to print for weeks and weeks until its candidate David Dinkins was safely elected. Even then, the story was very low key, with race mentioned many paragraphs into it. Who can doubt that if this situation had been reversed, if white girls had done this to black women, we would have been subjected to months-long nationwide propaganda campaign on the evils of white America. The double standard strikes again. Actually, that's one of the least racist things I came across. Listen to this, non sequitur about the foibles of Martin Luther King Day. Direct quote, once again from the Ron Paul newsletter. Boy, it sure burns me to have a national holiday for that pro-communist philanderer Martin Luther King. I voted against this outrage time and time again as a congressman. Ooh, we're not going to be seeing that on the little propaganda flyers, are you? What an infamy that Ronald Reagan approved it, even though he now kind of says that he's a Reagan conservative. Yeah, imagine that, a guy being hypocritical. We can thank him for our annual Hate Whitey Day. Oh, yeah. A couple lines later. Listen to a black radio talk show in any major city. The racial hatred makes a KKK rally look tame. The blacks talk about their own racial superiority, how the whites have a conspiracy to wipe them out, and how they're going to take over the country and enact retribution. They only differ over whether they should use King's nonviolent approach, i.e., state violence, or use private violence. Boy, this sounds like a guy that I really want in the Oval Office, making so many great decisions. I mean, it goes on. Oh, here's a great line. The same author, whoever he may be, who may or may not be Ron Paul, said that if there was a hypothetical city named after Martin Luther King Jr., he had a few proposed titles for them. Among them, direct quote, Welfaria, Zooville, Rape Town, Dirtburg, and Lazyopolis. We continue. Direct quote. Not that we should let Republicans off the hook. Commenting on national TV about the legacy of Martin Luther King, a prominent Republican conservative said that if the great Dr. King were alive today, he would be opposed to more welfare spending. That's malarkey. King was, at best, a socialist, as his writings and speeches show. He was a pal of communists and an advocate of a gigantic welfare state. Why, by the way, is King the only person in recorded history to keep his doctorate in death? No one ever says, Dr. Kinstein. Actually, it says Dr. Einstein. Apparently, yeah, he put a K there. Yeah, we all know communists want people to do spell checking. We continue. On the holiday honoring King, the files shown in the government schools depict whites as evil. From watching them, kids can think that 25 years ago, whites held blacks in cages until MLK came to unlock the cells. Well, that's really, really damning information. But it's not like, he's saying that we should all just shoot black people at random intervals. Oh, wait, hold on. Never mind. Actually, he is. Here's another presser. If you live in a major city, you've probably already heard about the newest threat to your life and limb and your family. Carjacking. In the old days, average people could avoid such youth by staying out of bad neighborhoods. Empowered by, media policies? And political complicity, however, the youth now roam everywhere, looking for cars to steal and people to rob. What can you do? More and more Americans are carrying a gun in the car. An ex-cop I know advises that if you have to use a gun on a youth, you should leave the scene immediately, disposing of the wiped-off gun as soon as possible. Such a gun cannot, of course, be registered to you, but one bought privately, through the classifieds, for example. I frankly don't know what to make of such advice, but even in my little town of Lake Jackson, Texas, I've urged everyone in my family to know how to use a gun in self-defense, for the animals are coming. Here's the thing. If you actually read the whole PDF, it's worse. There is stuff in there that will make you go out and drink turpentine. It is absolutely amazingly racist. But the thing is, at least Dr. Paul, I think he's a doctor anyway, like Dr. Frankenstein was, he's at least changed his tune. I mean, it's not like he's doing things today that can be considered, racially insensitive. Well, except for when he said the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was unconstitutional. Or when he said that we shouldn't give FEMA money to the people in New Orleans. Or the fact that he's actually accepting campaign contributions from Stormfront. Okay, maybe it hasn't changed all that much. Well, anyway, that's part one of this two-part series. There's so much malarkey going on with Mr. Paul that we'll have to do an actual two-part video series. So stay tuned and we'll come back with more things about his policies, his beliefs about religion, his economic stances, and all sorts of other fundamental absurdity that can only come from a guy who, looks like a chicken McNugget with eyebrows. See you in a few.